Okay. From the standpoint of jobs and unemployment, things are continuing to improve. And I am further reassured that what I told you yesterday would happen by September, October, November is going to happen. All of these right wingers, as I told you yesterday, are very, very worried about how it's more profitable to be on unemployment than to go back and work jobs at restaurants and retail stores and other places that are now reopening as we exit the pandemic. My position on this has been the enhanced unemployment has been one of the most effective pieces of COVID stimulus. Sure, anecdotally, there are some people who are making roughly the same or maybe even a little bit more with that enhanced unemployment, and maybe they're choosing not to go back to work for the time being. But that unemployment is going to end and they're going to have no choice but to go back to work. We're starting to see this increasingly happen. And we now have a new report from Yahoo Finance based on new Department of Labor data. Initial filings last week, we learned today. On Thursday, we get the numbers for the previous week. New jobless claims have dropped below 400,000 for the first time since March of 2020. This is a fifth consecutive week with a new low. This is now a 14-month low. Fewer and fewer Americans are becoming newly unemployed. Initial jobless claims came in at 385,000, just below the expected 387,000. Continuing claims are at 3.77 million, slightly higher than the 3.6 million that were expected. Again, this is the first time since the start of the pandemic where new jobless claims have dropped below 400,000. And this is now starting to get close to the pre-pandemic weekly rate. This is an important thing to understand. This is not a political statement. This is just what it is. In a good, normal economy, you still have new unemployment claims every week. And, you know, we've talked before about at what point does the risk of going out in the world get back to the baseline level? Because it was never zero. Even before COVID, you could go out and catch the flu, you could catch a stomach bug, you could get run over by a bus, etc. So it's about going back to the baseline. We were seeing, even in the great economy that I agree was in place during the Trump administration before the pandemic hit. Great in many ways, and yet we still had stagnant wages and other issues. You still saw 200-something thousand new unemployment claims every week. So when you look at that number, 385, it's almost back down to the pre-pandemic level. This is further evidence that as people's unemployment benefits start to continue to run out, and as more and more aspects of the economy are reopened, as more and more people's kids go back to school so that parents who don't have childcare can actually get back to work, we are going to see the issue that the right claims is a big issue of people just hanging out at home, raking in the dough on unemployment. It's going to resolve itself. The unemployment is going to end. The enhanced unemployment ends in September. People's state unemployment will ultimately run out, even with the various extensions that different states provide. And people are going to have to go back to work. Now, there's going to be a real question here about whether we see stronger lobbying efforts for better wages. And, you know, the economy is a complicated thing. When we say, what about a $15 minimum wage? As I've said before, there are parts of the country where cost of living is so high that a $15 minimum wage is too low. That's just the reality. There are other parts of the country where the cost of living is very, very low, and going to a $15 minimum wage immediately actually could be a significant shock to the economy, particularly states that still have the federal minimum wage as the prevailing minimum wage. And so these are really regionalized issues, much the same way, depending on which state you live in and depending on what the cost of living is and depending on what the wages are that are being paid there. There are jobs that, as a result of all of this, are probably going to have to start paying people more in order to get people to come back to work. Part of that is going to be because of some large businesses, everything from, Amazon, Bank of America has made an announcement, similar announcement, have upped the minimum wage that they are going to pay. This is going to lead to some businesses having to pay more in order to attract people, and that's okay. Now, if you said they're going to have to pay $100 an hour, that's a straw man red herring. That's not an equilibrium minimum wage. It's not adjusted to cost of living. It's not adjusted to anything that makes sense. It's a straw man from the right. They love to say, hey, listen, People having more money is better. Make the minimum wage $100 an hour. Make it $1,000 an hour. Nobody's calling for that. That's a serious person, because that's not an equilibrium wage tied to inflation, productivity, cost of living, or anything else. That being said, remember that when people make more money, that is a cost to the employer, but then people in the community have more money to go and spend at that business. Imagine a hardware store, for example. This is often an example that's given. Hardware store all of a sudden has a higher wage they have to pay, either because of the minimum wage has gone up or because they need to raise wages to attract workers. They go from $8 an hour to $12 an hour. Their payroll costs have just gone up. That's terrible, right? That'll kill their business. Well, hold on a second. If the entire region now sees a $12 minimum wage instead of $8, you now have all sorts of people who, because they are earning more money, they're going to go to the hardware store and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to get a new vacuum, or I'm going to get what I need to refinish my floors, or I'm going to finish my basement, or whatever the case may be. And even though the hardware store now has to pay more out in wages, they have all of these customers that now have money to go and spend and do projects. So revenue goes up as well. This analysis only works within what we would consider an equilibrium wage. It's really important to understand that. So that's the latest in terms of unemployment claims. This is going to be resolved mostly on its own. Some businesses are going to have to start paying more. There's no question about that, because they have been paying sub-market wages for a really long time. And that is going to be a problem for them. For the most part, this issue is going to resolve itself. I'm already seeing it happen in these numbers. Let me know your thoughts. You can find me on Twitter at @dpacman. We've got a really great show for you today.